Today on CityCast DC, big changes could be on the horizon for how we get around in DC. WAMU just announced they'll be unveiling a new, upgraded bus fleet this fall, and Metro is considering its largest expansion since the announcement of the Silver Line. Jordan Pascale, WAMU's transportation reporter, has been following the story and shares a vision for DC's transportation future. Today's Monday, July 31st. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. So Jordan, Metro is considering its largest expansion since the announcement of the Silver Line. What are some of the different proposals being put forth?
There's so many. Too many, maybe. There's 6 different options, and the idea is there's going to be maybe some big rail expansions, and then there's some ideas that cost way less money, like, adding new bus lines and commuter buses and that sort of thing. So the one everyone really wants to talk about is the rail expansions. And so there's basically 4 of these. One of the most popular that has been talked about is the Blue Line Loop. And so that would go basically starting from Roslyn. It would go through Georgetown and West End and kind of go along M Street to Union Station, and then head south through really growing areas like Buzzard Point and the new renovated St. Elizabeth's campus in Ward 8 there, and then down to National Harbor with the casino and development, and then back over to Virginia at Huntington. So that's the big one, the one that most achieves Metro's goals. There's some other ones like breaking off the Silver Line and like sending it up through, still same kind of path through DC, Georgetown to Union Station, but then hitting like Ivy City and Port Towns, and then like heading up to like College Park and Greenbelt. So various proposals, but most of them go through Prince George's County, what they call equity areas, people that are underserved by transit, maybe lower income, that sort of thing. So yeah, lots on the table.
Having lived in DC for a long time, I hear a lot of proposals or that we'll be waiting for a new Metro line that's been confirmed for like many, many years. Purple Line's a great example.
Yeah.
Are these things that people should really be expecting to come to fruition, or is it just sort of like wait and see, and then it's 10 years later?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, like the Purple Line is a great example. We hear a delay on that, every couple months, it seems like. Silver Line was also one of those things that like, oh, it's going to open. Same with Potomac Yard. Like all of these big major infrastructure projects, they take time, they take money. Inevitably, they're complicated projects, so they do often get delayed. So I'm 35 now, and I'm thinking, I'll probably be 55 or so, if this ever opens. They could accelerate it to like maybe 10 years or something like that, but funding takes a lot, development takes a lot, building takes a lot. So we're not the fastest at building transit, let's put it that way.
Yeah, when I first moved back to the DC area, I think I was an undergrad because I was looking at housing to go to grad school, and I remember seeing Purple Line, greener future signs in yards when I was an undergraduate in college. And here I am, like many, many, many years later. If you're fantasizing about new routes, which of these, if any, really scratch that itch for you? Like, which do you actually want to see?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's the sort of thing that it's hard to picture, and I think a lot of people think of this through their own lens of, where they live, where they want to go, all that sort of thing. And I think it's so hard to think 10, 15, 20 years, who knows what part of the region you might be living in or, that sort of thing. But I can see a lot of utility in a lot of these places. My fiance works in West End. Their office is really excited about seeing that dot on the map. Georgetown has long been a place that a lot of people want to get to by train but can't. Ivy City is a growing area. Buzzard Point's a growing area. National Harbor, same thing. So, I mean, really, any of these have their ups and downs. I could see some added connectivity and some different options with, having that Blue Line loop. So that means you could go kind of clockwise or counterclockwise. That would serve a lot of Virginians, it would serve a lot of Marylanders, it would serve a lot of DC folks. So I think that Blue Line loop is kind of the most intriguing just about, where it goes and who it serves. But, at the same time, we know that when transit comes into new areas, it kind of changes neighborhoods and stuff too. So I could understand if there's some concern from folks that are a little concerned about what happens when Metro comes to their neighborhood.
Let's talk about that. Like, what are some of the effects these new lines could have on Metro?
A great example is just how much development goes on around Metro. A big apartment complex was just approved for like Tacoma, which this was a station that was opened not all that long ago, 20, 30 years ago, but it's now being built up around. I mean, you've got brand new apartments, you've got new bars and restaurants, all that kind of stuff, and good amenities. Like that part is exciting, but it's more expensive to live near Metro. It's a great amenity and access wise, just like we see, new highways or different things go in. Transportation is kind of what connects and binds a region together. And so it brings a lot of pluses and minuses.
Hey DC, Bridget Todd here. On this podcast, we work hard to bring you the most important and entertaining conversations happening around our city. But that's not all we do. We also have a daily newsletter that brings you so much more. Our free daily newsletter, Hey DC, is written and curated by Kayla Cote-Stemmerman. You may have heard her behind the mic a couple of times. The Hey DC newsletter is your daily toolkit for being a more informed and engaged citizen of DC. It's packed with recommendations, tips, and secrets for seizing everything that DC has to offer. You can subscribe to Hey DC by texting DC to 66866. That's 66866. So this is all coming at a time where Metro is approaching the $750 million fiscal cliff. What are some of the Metro leaders saying about this when they're looking at these possible expansions, and why are they having this conversation now?
I've seen a ton of comments from people saying, okay, I thought they were broke. What's up? Now they want to spend, $35-40 billion on something. So right now, I think it is kind of a lot of like back and forth of exactly your question. Why now? And so the way that Metro has explained their position on this is that there's a few things going on here. One, that their current budget challenge is an operational budget challenge. So Metro has two pots of money, an operations budget and a capital budget. And those big kind of infrastructure projects, those maintenance projects, that comes out of the capital budget. So they're saying two separate pots of money for now. The other thing that they're saying is that this is a generational type investment. In the here and now, like the main problem is money, but we're talking 10, 20 years. So, they're assuming they're going to get that figured out, and they basically need to kind of keep planning towards the future because they can't be stagnant because the region isn't stagnant, and they want to grow as the region grows.
So Metro's leaders met behind closed doors with state officials from Maryland and Virginia. Do you know what came of those talks, or can you tell us what came of those talks?
Yeah, so this was like an annual retreat of the Council of Governments, which is basically all the regions, elected leaders in like College Park to Gaithersburg to Prince William County to DC. So it's kind of a who's who of elected leaders from around the region. So one of the main topics that they talked about was Metro's funding issue and how to fund the operational issue. It was closed press, so we couldn't attend. Everyone that I've kind of poked around a little bit, it's like, oh, productive conversations, like got the ball rolling sort of thing, but not exactly sure. They didn't solve the $750 million
In that one retreat, they didn't solve it.
Yeah, I know, right? Like how lazy, like you can't get it done in a 4-hour meeting or whatever it is. But anyways, first step of many.
So looking into your transportation expert crystal ball, do you think any of these expansions will actually happen? Like, will I be on one of these expansion lines sometime soon?
I think it has to in some ways. I mean, the fundamental reason that they are dealing with this in the first place is because you've got the blue, orange, and silver lines all going through the same tracks in downtown DC, going through the same tunnel from Roslyn to Foggy Bottom. And so that's the whole impetus for this, is that they want to basically fix that problem. And the way that you do that is by creating a separate tunnel, separating some of these lines so you can fit more people through. Granted, right now, we don't have the orange crush, as some people called it back pre-pandemic, when, you were in tight crush load in a orange line train because it's, so busy. But, Metro expects that to return at some point. And so they are kind of figuring this out in the future. So in order to fix that problem, yeah, they're going to have to build something, whether they go as cheap as, just adding a lot more commuter buses or as expensive as building that whole new line. Like, they're saying this is a problem and it needs to be fixed. So there's going to be, a public engagement process over the next couple months, and they hope to decide by the end of the year.
During that public engagement process, how can folks listening submit input on this?
Yeah, there's a survey out right now. If you Google blue, orange, silver study Metro, it's probably the first page that comes up. And yeah, there's a survey right now. There's a couple kind of hybrid public meetings over the next couple weeks. And so what Metro has basically said is like, these are the 6 options that we're looking at. We're not kind of coming up with new ideas or changing these ideas. It's like, pick your favorite, obviously planners and engineers and folks that know what they're doing have put a lot of work into this, but now they're kind of curious. Okay, well, what does the public want to see? And they've done a little bit of that before, but they want to get more input.
So we'll include that link that you just mentioned to submit input in our show notes. I guess one of my last questions is like, say some of these actually go through, how might it transform the way that Metro works for us, the folks who ride it?
It means a lot more trains, depending on which line they pull out. They've looked at pulling out blue, they've looked at pulling out silver, but I mean, it could mean a lot more east-west trains for Virginia to Maryland. It can mean a lot more connectivity. One of the kind of highlights of this is, not only are you building a dozen plus new stations, you're also getting new connection points. So they're looking at that Farragut North, Farragut West, another Farragut station. So you'd have kind of this super hub of Farragut stations where you could transfer among all those lines. Union Station would have another line that you could connect with. So you wouldn't just have to take red to Union Station, you'd have another option. And so it really creates a lot more connections and more places that you can go, which I think a lot of people value, that you can get where you want to go on Metro.
Does it mean less driving?
That's a good question. I mean, that's the goal, is to get more people off the road. Whether that happens, there's so many factors that go into that. How many more highway miles they build, how well Metro operates, what people's work habits are. There's so much that goes into that. But that is the goal, in the end is, we've got a climate crisis. One of the best ways to reduce, our personal footprint is transportation and driving. So that's the goal.
Jordan, thank you so much for being here. I'll see you on Metro, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see you there. Thanks, Bridget.
Before you go, here's some quick news. The staff of Solid State Books voted to ratify their first union contract. They are the second bookstore in D.C., following Politics and Prose, to ratify a collective bargaining agreement. After just 17 days of negotiations, owners and employees agreed upon a 3-year contract that includes cost of living wages and strong anti-discrimination protections. Also, residents across D.C. are on high alert over the steep incline in property crimes. They're at the highest point since 2017. Dozens of D.C. retailers are getting robbed, sometimes by organized theft rings. You might notice additional security being added and more items under lock and key at stores like CVS. And finally, fewer teachers are resigning in D.C. area schools this year. During the 2021-2022 school year, 452 teachers left their positions at D.C. public schools. This year, the number dropped to 314. School officials say that it's due to a compensation agreement with the Washington Teachers Union and lower principal turnover. That's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not share it with the DC transportation nerd in your life? You can rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.